Hey now, it's your girl Little Bacon Bear. You may know me from 93.9 WKYS, and if you do, good, perfect. We're in the right place. Of course, you can check in with me on Instagram and Twitter right now. That's at Little Bacon Bear. And this is part two, the new norm after the storm. And I think it's totally fitting that this is kind of happening today, as it is raining outside. So I guess the case that we're in the virtual space is honestly to our benefit today. So for this part two, we have some new faces, and I think I'll start there for introductions, and we can move back to the faces that we already know. Miss Renaya Holmes, can you give me a brief pitch about yourself and some things that you do in your life, please?
Sure thing. Well, hi, Little Bacon Bear. Glad to be here. My name is Renaya Holmes. I am a rising senior at Morgan State University, majoring in social work. I plan to get my master's soon after that, so fingers crossed. I'm very excited to be here, very excited to talk about mental health and my personal experiences and my experiences in taking flight. So happy to be here.
I'm not sure if that's Nia or Nia Johnson, but she gave you a yes. So already got a fan there. Haley, tell me a little bit about yourself, please.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. So I'm Haley. I am the Senior Youth Engagement Specialist with Taking Flight Youth Move Maryland, which is a peer support and advocacy program with Maryland Coalition of Families. We're also a local Youth Move chapter. And I also use my lived experience with anxiety, depression, disordered eating, caring for loved ones with severe mental illness and substance use issues to, help inform my work as a peer. Really just helping normalize mental health challenges and, making people feel like they're not alone in those experiences.
We definitely have to close in the gap. And I'm going to put a pin in the peer advocacy point because I think that's going to be super important here. Mr. Hayes, we had you here last time. I called you Mr. Hayes because you give me a very official vibe virtually. So Joshua Hayes, go ahead and introduce yourself right quick for me, please.
Yes, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Happy to be here once again. My name is Joshua Hayes. I'm a licensed master social worker with the state of Maryland, working out of Prince George's County Department of Social Services. I just have a passion for working with young people. Right now, I'm working with transition age youth leaving the foster care system and kind of preparing them for independence. I just love working with young people and helping them get ready to transition to adulthood and help them any way I can, especially when it comes to mental health. So I'm glad to be here.
Well, I high five virtually to you to that. I think last time we definitely touched on the fact that you're the only man on the panel. So we're going to be tapping on you to talk to our young people and our young men here because there's some things that I can speak on, but you got to offer the male perspective. Okay. I
Absolutely.
appreciate that in advance. Now, Dr. Shaw, last but not least, go ahead and introduce yourself for me, please.
Hi again, and thanks everyone for being on for this part two of New Norm After the Storm. My name is Dr. Billina Shaw. I'm the medical director of the Behavioral Health Division at the Prince George's County Health Department. I am in charge of a grant that creates this whole step forward initiative at the county, and just so excited to talk about the mental health of young people. And thanks again for having us.
Of course. Now, Dr. Shaw, you said that you set this initiative in motion. Tell me about the need that you saw here in the community. And let's speak to that because we all kind of know what mental health entails, but you saw a need and you addressed it.
Sure. So this is part two of a grant from the federal government, SAMHSA, the agency that focuses on mental health. And the main point of this is that the mental health of young people is different than the mental health of adults. Young people can present either a little bit angry, they isolate. It's already a hard time as you start to go through young adults and adolescent years. And we wanted to make sure that we focused on something specific to this transition period, that we didn't let these young people fall through the cracks. And I'm just so excited to be able to focus on this targeted age group where there's a high risk of behavioral health conditions. The highest growing rate of behavioral health conditions occurs in this 18 to 25 age range. And, people don't hit 18 and become, fully grown and have normal brains. The brain develops through 24. So, we're all growing and developing in the world together. And we want to make sure we're focusing together on this age group.
For sure. And, I think that piece that you said, the new norm, we're talking about turning a new thing here in the pivot between being 18 and going from high school to like, I'm grown, I get to wear the pants. That is probably one of the largest, craziest transitions in my life, especially trying to do it in a pandemic. I can only imagine what the class of 2020 and the class of 2021 has even uncovered and unearthed indoors for themselves. And I am curious to see what the impact will be for them when it's all said and done. And Renaya, I'm going to tap on you to speak on that from the college perspective here soon. Okay. Now, does anyone want to like volunteer themselves to tell me why this is important? And I almost want to tap on Haley because you talked about this being a part of your family. Like this is something that was introduced to you. I'm going to assume at a young age, but you can tell your story better than me.
Yeah, I think, this is really important to me because, Maryland Coalition of Families, for example, the organization that Renaya and I work with, they provide support to, caretakers of, a young person who's struggling with their mental health or, a loved one who's struggling with problem gambling or substance use issues. And I really was attracted to that work because, I didn't know about MCF or organizations like it when I was younger and when I really needed that support. So it's really important to me now to be a part of it because I want to be that person for someone who is in the position that I was in when I was younger, because it's so confusing. And, especially if you turn 18 or let's say you're a little older than that and you're not on your parents' insurance anymore or something like that, and you're just completely on your own to try to navigate the healthcare system, where to turn first. You don't even know if you should, pursue treatment. And I think just having someone in a position like Renaya or myself, like to be there and be like, hey, I was there. Here's what I did. Here's what helped me. Here's what didn't help me. And I'm just going to put it all on the table for you. And I'm going to help you figure out what's your best next step.
I definitely want to dive into the next step piece because I think part of this is just like, you said getting off your parents' insurance. Oh my gosh. You're not thinking about that at 17, but you're definitely thinking about it at 25 and a half because 26 is when you're out of here. And so I could definitely relate at that level. I do want to take a time to zen and offer a performance to the audience here. This is from Brianna Williams. Excuse me. She has an original song. It's called Don't Worry. When we have a world full of stress, maybe this will help us zen out.
You go through the different times by thinking it's alright sometimes. There's a possible way, and I can get you out right now. Stop what you're doing and show. Don't think about the times when you had to let go. So tell me if you really need me, and I will be right there by you. Don't worry about that. Just tell me if you wanna know. I will be right there for sure. I know that your soul is pure. Don't need no one to assure. Don't worry about the flaws, I know we have them and I love them all. And see you even in the dark, can't spot them. So can you stop what you're doing and show? Don't think about the times when you had to let go. So tell me if you really need me, and I will be right there by you. Don't worry about that. Get stuck in your head, got a different mindset. You can replace that, and I know that you can. With your energy, got that type of synergy, how it used to be. Stop what you're doing and show. Don't think about the times when you had to let go. So tell me if you really need me, and I will be right there by you. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that.
Come on, Brianna, round of applause. I wish I had some horns and some like loud noises to make, so we'll go ahead and let out a yes. Thank you, Courtney. Thank you. Well done from Brianna Williams. That was an original song called Don't Worry. That was promising. I love that. So I was thinking about this. We're at this time last year, I think things were a lot weirder. Tell me about your mindset this time last year, Renaya. We're almost halfway through the pandemic at that point.
Oh wow. It was still pretty stressful for me. I, of course, had just finished school, probably like, it's June, probably in May, I finished school. And it was just taking time to process that, wow, I just had a semester online. I pay a lot of money to go in person. It was just very overwhelming and trying to get back to like, try to have a sense of normality. I would go for walks. I would be walking around outside with a mask on, just trying to still like keep myself and not lose my mind because of course I'm so used to life before. I of course still have more freedom. I'd be going out with friends. I'd be celebrating the good grades that I got in the pandemic now. Like it was such a shock for me to have to go back and just like keep my mind together because that's quite frankly what it was. Just a sense of like, okay, this is new, this is a different change, but now we have to try to navigate life now and continue to move forward and not move backwards. So that's quite frankly how life was during this.
Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you there, but you're right. You said like just gathering all these things, and I felt like I was losing my marbles, and I had to like find my marbles again. Like I felt like I was reemerging to the world as a new bacon again. Like I had to learn, and I'm still learning all of my social skills again, like getting used to hugs and people being in close proximity and you not jumping at the gesture anymore. Like that is a big leap and a jump. And when I think about this time last year, just like you, I wasn't paying for school, but I was trying to working on cinder block desks. I had a cinder block desk that I had made because that's all that IKEA had. And I was doing my radio show from my house and then things like that. But you had to develop a new routine for yourself. Haley, can you speak on like developing routine? You seem organized.
Yeah, well, like I feel like at this point last year also it was like I really recharged by being social and seeing my friends and going out and go to a concert and like I just felt like every fun thing was just like gone. And so I had to start learning like, okay, how do I get that same sort of like sense of being recharged like at home by myself? Like and I started with a routine and I feel like that like sort of having a daily maintenance routine where I could just like really think about my mental health and really just keeping my life together, on like a daily basis rather than like ignoring it until it got to a point where it was maybe even could have been a crisis, instead just like taking it slowly and trying to just maintain sanity, which I feel like was so hard. And I feel like it sounds so like basic to just be like, I just would write down a list of eat breakfast, take a shower, do this, just because it felt like something. And so, yeah,
I just want to show you my list. I'm so sorry. I just have to show you my list.
Same. And it really didn't, the list wasn't necessary, but it made me feel like I was actually accomplishing things.
And it totally is necessary because sometimes you just need to see your goal. You need to know that you brushed your teeth and you feel a sense of accomplishment by scribbling off like 3 things that you did today. Mm-hmm. Even if it was just like putting on deodorant, you just made sure you brushed your teeth today. And sometimes that's all you had to give to the day. That's all you got. So you give it what you got. I'm sure, can anyone relate to the sentiment now of having like mixed feelings as we're talking about after and the pandemic is over and this is the end and better yet, we outside, we're at that place now and people are talking about the after. Do you have mixed feelings or are you sure that you're ready to step back into this new world?
I feel like if you guys don't mind, if I start, I feel like transitions are always hard. And this is a time where it's so unique. There's not like a rule book for how you start living again after a pandemic. And I think there's going to be a lot of uncertainty when it comes to like how and when, because it's not just like what we're comfortable with. We really have to pay attention to what the people around us are comfortable with. Like even my friends are still like, we're all fully vaccinated and they're still like more comfortable wearing a mask out and about just because they're not maybe psychologically ready to like have it all be out in the open again. So I think there's like a lot of guesswork that comes with it, even though I'm like so ready to just like forget this ever happened and just like move on.
No, absolutely. I think we would all love to just kind of run past it, but we are kind of still in it. We're in the middle of it. And at this point, I'm just like, pro, do whatever makes your body feel best, whatever you think is best for you and your health. This time last year, also, I do not even last year, we're happy it's happening still every day, but we're talking about racial injustice in America. During the pandemic, we also had insurrection and all the other crazy things that happened. Tell me about this time last year, Mr. Hayes, your mindset as we were dealing with these dual pandemics at the same time.
Yes, it was extremely difficult. Just already trying to process, a global pandemic, while trying to process just the violence that we've been seeing for a long time now against people of color in this country, particularly by the hands of the police, and it's very challenging to try to just navigate dealing with two kind of tragedies and traumatic experiences at the same time. So people are dealing with loss, and grief, loss of income, just their whole life has been interrupted by the pandemic. And then they also have to witness, people that look like them being killed. And so that's extremely traumatic, to try to juggle that and then still find some way to function. And so, yeah, it was very tough to just see, me being a black man, seeing those videos. For example, the George Floyd video. It's just like, how can I, continue to function and go to work every day? Like my whole sense of security, it was already, thrown off by the pandemic. Now, I don't feel safe going outside for a whole nother reason that, has been persistent, but now it's just kind of like pushed to the forefront on top of what we're already dealing with. So it was very challenging. And I'm sure, a lot of people, but just speaking to, specifically black men, I know a lot of us were feeling kind of discouraged and kind of feeling that, we already had many challenges that we had to overcome. Then that feeling of, our life not being valued, on top of what we're seeing and what we're trying to work through and navigate every day. It was extremely tough.
Well, you hitting it right on the mark. I was head nodding like, yep, yep. And I can only empathize from this space, as a black woman. And I share my love with y'all. And I hope that, we all get the chance to see our kids grow and to be able to have kids if that is your choice and be able to just live your life carefree just because you are human. So that's what I'm definitely at in that space. I feel like we cannot present problems without solutions, though. Dr. Shaw, give me some things that you might offer to someone on a piece of advice on like, bracing the impact of going back outside, of we outside, I guess you can say.
So I think, I'm always a fan of saying don't judge yourself or don't judge others. So throughout the whole pandemic, especially in the very beginning, wear a mask. And there's a lot of tension about mask wearing versus not mask wearing and all these other pieces and who's comfortable. And, there was this big divide. And now, some people are feeling more comfortable than others wearing a mask, just like Haley was saying. And I think that if it's making you anxious to go out without a mask, but you're out with tons of friends and they are wearing a mask, then you be you and you do what's safe for you and feeling comfortable, because this is a really anxiety provoking time as we're coming out of this. I think right now, it's also really important to evaluate good habits and bad habits that came out of the pandemic. So
she said anxiety provoking. That one hit a note.
Yeah. And we all had some stuff that came out of this and bad stuff that came out of this, right? Like you guys mentioned some good stuff, but there's also some bad stuff that came out of it. Like being on 5 Zooms at one time, probably not a good thing, right? We can't do this forever. So we need to start thinking about what we're doing right now that's not really going to make sense forever.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Does anyone have to have a solution or want to offer a bad habit that they might have picked up during the pandemic?
Oh gosh, I can share so many. I definitely got really out of whack with how my eating schedule was. I, of course, was consistent when it came to me going to school and going to classes. Of course, I'd eat before I go to class, because I actually have to walk to class. And then,
but
of
if
course,
there is
while
no
I'm on campus,
class, you might not eat.
Exactly. That's exactly what happened. So, of course, it's during the day, I'm just on the couch or I'm in my bed, I'm doing school. My eating schedule got totally out of whack. I wasn't eating until like 3 or 4 in the afternoon, but I was fine. Like, I just wasn't hungry because I just wasn't as active. And then, like, I'd eat, like, really late at night because I wasn't eating much during the day. And it's just like a constant cycle that I'm still trying to break.
That's
And,
okay.
like,
We're still in the pandemic. You have time.
Exactly. So that was the biggest challenge for me.
No, and you're absolutely correct. I'm sure we can all air out our habits that we picked up here in the pandemic, but I appreciate you for sharing yours and being authentic, because I think that we all kind of shifted on the eating scale. That specifically seemed to be a pivot, whether you ate more, ate less, or didn't eat any at all. It definitely was an impact. Before we
Right.
move on to more solutions, I do want to offer another performance. As Thomas Pierre said, greetings. Will there be more performances? Let's give him one since he asked for one. We have a spoken words piece that is from Carol Felton, or Cece, and it's called Bus Rides.
I can still remember those long bus rides home after getting bullied at school all day. They used to say, "A ugly girl in the front," and I knew they were talking about me, but I was too ashamed of myself to turn around and defend God's creation, so I just sank down in my seat. I didn't want them to see the tears as they tickled down my cheeks, so I would try and ignore them as they picked away at every insecurity I remember. Gazing out of the bus window, memorizing the pit-pat of the rain, wishing I could be one of those raindrops flowing so freely from the clouds, then ending my path on the ground, I would be forgotten. No one would ever know I existed, so I wouldn't have to worry about what they said about me. When I was in the 5th grade, I started cutting myself because I felt like I didn't belong. It was a way for me to escape my pain, so I would pray that I would cut deep enough in that blade, scraping the inside of my veins, carve the word hate into each arm, hoping God would not come and save me, but the devil would be my guardian angel. I wish you never came. Let me leave this world the same way I came in, with a cord wrapped around my neck, tears in my eyes, pale crimson flesh, blood all over my body. You taught me how to hate myself before I even knew my true identity, so tell me, why did it have to always be me? What was it going to take for you to accept me? Did you enjoy laughing at someone else's pain? Your insults ate away at my self-esteem like vultures, scavenging on my confidence till none was left. See, because of you, I started to believe pure beauty didn't exist in me. Because of you, I'm still paranoid and suspect of what others may think of me. Because of you, I used to cry myself to sleep every night, hoping my tears would leave a trail to that one suicide note I wrote saying, "Dear God, nobody loves me enough for me to stay, so it's time for me to leave this earth permanently. Maybe then they'll appreciate me more when I'm gone, because no one was ever there to tell me I was beautiful. To wipe the tears from my eyes, not once did I hear the words 'I love you' from anyone but the guys. See, the guys would always tell me they loved me, so I started to put my all into them, not knowing that God was the only man I should put my all in. So yes, I can still remember those long bus rides home after getting bullied at school all day. But you know what? I thank God for experiencing that pain, because it allowed me to replace that mic with the blade and spit poetry to whoever would listen, ignoring the ignorant. Society will no longer kill this teenager, for I finally found my true identity.
I just can only snap to that. That was a beautiful piece. She had me in my feels. I thought she was gonna cry. Girl, I thought I was gonna cry. So wow, okay. Sorry. CC, if you're watching, that was the one. That was the one right there. And I think that we should have even put a little bit of a trigger warning before that, just because we talked about some deep, dark feelings that we all might be feeling or someone might be experiencing. And sometimes you don't always know it until it's chaos. You find yourself at the height of the anxiety. You find yourself at the meltdown. And you're like, oh, hell, how did I end up in this space? Does anyone care to share an experience in their life where they were like, I might need some help. I might need someone beyond me.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and start. Sorry, did I cut off Renaya?
Haley, you can go ahead.
Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah, I actually, I touched on this just briefly earlier. So I, in my family, have both of my parents who struggle with mental health and substance use issues. So when I was growing up, my sister and I were really, focused on that. Like, how can we help? How can we help support you? How can we, keep this family together? So when I went off to college, I was like, oh, thank God I'm going to a different environment and my own mental health is going to improve because I'm not in that toxic environment anymore. And I was so excited about it. But then once I got to college and I realized that the depression was still there, the anxiety was still there, then I was really like, oh, this is in me. It's not something that's just a reaction to my environment. So that's, I think, the first time that I actually went and sought like professional treatment for myself.
And that's a huge thing. Sometimes you have to see it in yourself, but sometimes you don't see it in yourself, but you see it in a friend and you just don't know what to do or what to say or how to broach the conversation because that space can be a little awkward, you know? And if you've never been on the receiving end or the giving end of that, you don't know how weird that might be, but it's so necessary that you have that space and that you have a friend to lean on. Renaya, can you give me a little bit of insight when we're talking about peer advocacy, what that means?
Oh yes, of course. I've definitely experienced a lot of peer advocacy, especially while being in college, while being at school. I am a part of an organization named Future Females United to Uplift, Reshape, and Educate, and that I've shared within just being at school and having those wonderful women, my sisters, with me all the time. We make a space to make sure that we tackle that and we support each other because it's hard, and especially as college students, not everybody wants to give the burdens of, oh, I'm not having a good day. Oh my gosh, I failed this quiz and I needed that to graduate or anything like that. It's more so like, yeah, I'm fine, girl. Don't worry about me. But when we have that space where we're able to be vulnerable and we're able to get out the stresses of school, the stresses of personal life, we're at school, but we're having issues at home and that we're not even there to deal with. That's where I experienced the most peer advocacy and the most peer help, definitely with them. And of course, taking the things that I've learned with school and also my own advocacy that I've done just in my personal life, I used it and applied it to Taking Flight. And I'm really happy to be on the team, really happy to share my experiences with everyone and take the snippets of my own mental health issues and connect with others to let them know that you are not the only one struggling. And Lord knows it's tough. It's very, very tough. And having to get out of your comfort and speak up about it, you're already doing great because it's not easy to talk about and it's not easy to reach out and have help. So especially when it's somebody that looks like you, that's somebody that's in the same age group as you, it makes it a lot easier.
And you're absolutely correct. Dr. Shaw, I asked you this question in the first part of this series, and I want to ask you this again. What are some things that we can look for in our family, our friends, our peers, the someone in the grocery store, your neighbor, the woman that walks her dog down the street? What are some things that we can look for in the people around us that we care about that are, hey, we need to check in on them kind of signs,
So I think the first thing, the most important thing you said of all that is look. How many times do we go down the street and we're in our phones or we are multitasking and doing 5 other things? And you talking about the bad things that came out of the pandemic. I think that, so much of our connections were virtual, but I think we need to remind ourselves of some of those old social skills and looking. So looking people in the eye as we're walking by them, like, so we can even notice things. And so what were you noticing? The most important thing you could talk about, people being isolated or angry or sad or worried or jumpy, but the biggest thing is change. And I think, and if the most impactful thing is that we can come together as a community and know our neighbors, know our friends, know our peers, and know and just be there for each other so that you can see the change. And you don't know that smile that you gave somebody at the grocery store or that quick check-in or chat or like, how are you really doing? I noticed this could be really saving someone's life, like Cece said.
You are right on the money there. I think that it's the change, and I think especially in a time like there in a time like this when we have exchanged and we've all felt so much transition, it is hard to like nail down what a change looks like. It's like, girl, the past year has been a change. I'm not really sure. Closing in that gap. What are some examples, Dr. Hayes, Mr. Hayes, Dr. Joshua Hayes, Mr. Joshua Hayes, not Doctor. Sorry. Wow. Whew. Can you tell me some ways that we can close in that gap?
Yes, absolutely. So, yeah, one of the biggest things, like Dr. Shaw said about change, I think it's very important that, for everyone, loved ones, friends, acquaintances, people, just the biggest thing that could be a huge help to someone is just being present. That's something that, we've kind of lost just trying to navigate the pandemic. And a lot of times we can get wrapped up, in our own lives and what's going on. But yeah, just being present with someone is very important in those moments. A lot of times people don't feel like they have the safe space to express where they are, but just having someone, that they care about you and your well-being is very important. And so when you're present, then you can pick up on those changes. You can pick up on those changes in their functioning and their habits and things of that nature. And also just, allowing yourself to be open to communicating when you're in vulnerable spaces. That's a very hard thing to do, individually, and of course, asking someone else to do. I know a lot of times when I'm working with my clients, sometimes I have to take a step back because we're asking so much of that person to as far as expressing themselves emotionally. It's a very tough thing to do. It's very scary. It's very hard. It can be triggering to bring up some of those old things, and so allowing them to know that they have that safe space and to take their time with it, and to really be, I've said this last time, be patient with themselves as far as the process goes, because it's very hard to be able to open yourself up in that way. And so just being present with people, just letting them know that you're there for them, letting them know that you care, is very important.
A safe space is so important, Sharonda. I'm with you there on that. And you said be gentle with yourself. I actually close my radio show with that every time. Be gentle with yourself and your self growth, because you look at other people's journey. You get on Instagram, you have a world of all of these external stimuli that make you feel like you should be running, and you're just fine. You're cool. Everything's chill. Everything looks good on Instagram and everything looks good on Twitter, and everybody's happy on social media, but
Right.
it's about obtaining it in a real meaningful way. Dr. Shaw, when we're talking about the space of solution and offering resources, and once we have addressed that we know that there's an issue here and we want to get help, where do we go?
So the first important thing to know is if you are feeling like CC mentioned, where you're actually thinking about harming yourself, or you're thinking about, are you trying to physically do things to harm yourself, or just not wanting to be here, then you need to make sure that you're getting help immediately. Right. So with that, I would say that you can text MD to 741-741 to reach out to the crisis text line. Call 211, press 1. If things are really unsafe and you're feeling like you need to be somewhere right away, call 911 and get to a hospital. But but there are multiple steps before you get there. And whether or not, the first thing is touching base with, say, your family doctor, or thinking about going to a specialist, like a mental health professional, a counselor, a social worker, a psychiatrist, psychologist. But there's also a big space now that we're really focusing on peer support. The ability to talk to people who are experiencing something similar in a similar age range, in a similar group, because they have walked the walk. They've gone through the steps of understanding what those systems can be like as you start to engage in treatment. And it's really important to have it. It's not all about the medicines. It's not all about the specialized ways of the treatments. A lot of times it's just about making sure that you get the support and coping you need.
You're absolutely correct. And I love the ticker there at the bottom, because if you prefer to talk, you can do that. But if you prefer to text, I could do that. I think I could text all my issues. I'd have paragraphs, but I think it would help. So Aubrey is the star here. Round of applause to her. I think I want to give a couple of shout outs here in the comment from Nia Johnson. She said, yes, Aubrey, go best friend. Justine K said, Mr. Josh, thank you for being a huge support to our youth. Thea Wilkins, Aubrey, I'm so proud. Glad this conversation is being had. It's necessary. Your strong and encouraging presence is definitely needed for our youth, for our young Black men. Thank you. So round of applause to all of you guys. You're killing it thus far, and you're getting ranting and raving reviews in the comments. Now, just to keep the program moving, what are you most excited about as the pandemic is nearing the end here? The end.
I'd say I'm most excited for.
Sorry, Renata, go ahead.
I'm definitely excited to go back to school. Of course, it's my senior year coming up. I'll finally be done with college, and I just want to end it with a bang, actually be on campus, get to experience homecoming as an undergraduate student, one last hurrah. So that's what I'm most excited about, just getting back to school because I miss it.
Well, congratulations on some more accomplishment.
Thank you.
And now you get to walk. So Let's do
Yes,
that.
and I actually get to walk. Yes.
I love that for you. So you smile real big, do a cartwheel for all of us because we'll be cheering you on. And anybody that is the class of 2020, 2021, I really high five to y'all because y'all really the ones. We're built different. Y'all built differenter, if that's the thing. Haley, can you give me one positive thing that came out of the pandemic for you?
I think honestly, I think about it in, the world of peer work. I think that in a lot of ways, people came to terms with their mental health for maybe the first time this year. And that is something that did a lot of work in breaking down that stigma. And I think that's something that we've all been working towards for so long. And then finally, I feel like everywhere I looked over the course of the past year, there was something about mental health, whether it was like a commercial for like BetterHelp with like some celebrity endorsing it or like something, it was just everywhere. And I think that's all a part of it. It's like, as long as we just keep that door open and keep moving forward, I feel like there was just an extra boost that we got over the past year. And that's just incredible to see.
If I could share, I feel like the pandemic presented options. It showed you how many options were available to you that you didn't know, you weren't sure of, and you really had to jump off the couch and really be about it. And that's like the biggest thing. But there are so many options that are available when it's time to come get help, when you just can't do it. And sometimes that's okay. That is totally okay. The pandemic was a good time to cry a lot, but it's also time to pivot into our new norm and the time after the storm, even though it is still raining outside here on the DMV. But Dr. Shaw, as we begin to pivot and turn into our new norm or get ready for it, where is help available? Where can they text? Where can they say hello and tap in and things like that?
So just a reminder, it's go across the bottom. You can text MD to 741-741, call 211, press 1. And for me, I think the most important piece that came out of this was connections, that we focused so much on connections and stuff that we had taken for granted. And this is not a time to take your mental health for granted. And it's not a time to take the ability to be able to be connected to someone for treatment as well. So I just wanted to encourage everyone and thank the panelists for the last 2 shows, as well as our performers, just for being so open, vulnerable, sharing their skills, talents. I just want to just make sure I say thank you.
No, and I thank you guys for this opportunity, this platform, for the great songs, the great poetry, the feels, and all of these things, because I think it's super important. We said social distancing, but we didn't have to be socially distanced, and it really does feel good to connect in a space like this. Hey, Dr. Shaw, is there anything else you wanted to communicate to the people and anyone else also?
Just that there's hope, 741-741, all that is just whatever it is, a friend, it's a family member, it's a formal line, whatever it is, there's hope. I love Cece's poem because it talked about how she went from a time of struggle, a time from a really hard time, and she came out better on the end. I love that line about how I'm thankful for the pain. And so just like the pandemic can be hard and there were things that were painful for all of us, we can take those experiences and come out better. And the same with our mental health is that it takes a deep dive and some work and it's really hard to be vulnerable. I think how it was put in the comments, but after you do that work, it's you can come out better. And that work may be some time. It's not like a one-stop shop, but you'll come out so much better.
You're absolutely correct. And I think we all can definitely leave on the high note and the sentiment of that there is hope and you got to give yourself some grace and gentle with your growth. If I got that, Mr. Hayes. The ticker at the bottom will give you all the information available. The help is available to you. And thank you guys. Appreciate it so much for this opportunity.